Hello, I'm Alex Thurner, and I'll be your host for this episode. The overall purpose of the Advocate podcast is to capture people and their complex and rich identities and show you who they are through their own stories. Today's episode includes a series of interviews that uncover the hidden realities of being Black on our campus. The Black Lives Matter movement isn't new, but the significance of recognizing the struggle of others is perennially important. How long can memory persist in an age where appearance is often considered too complex and simultaneously treated as though reality is invisible? Let's get started with a current student, a recent alum, and then we will speak with a faculty member dedicated to educating LMU students. For the purpose of this podcast, can you both state your affiliation with LMU?
Hi, I am Brandon McKinney. I'm a film production major and business administration minor at LMU.
My name is Nyla Manuel. I'm a staff employee here at LMU, and I'm also alumni.
Is your time here invigorating? Is it celebrating your identity?
I'd say to a degree. When we were talking about ethnic intercultural services and that office, which really focuses on a lot of different ethnic groups on campus. But if you're talking about OBSS or TLC, which are predominantly Black departments that focus on Black identity, I see in those departments, we're doing everything we can to maintain the Black identity on campus. When it comes to the actual curriculum and the academics at LMU, I would disagree to a degree when it comes to prioritizing the Black experience, my Black body, and how important that is within this setting. Again, going back to the global conversations, for example, those were such impactful events for me, coming from Maryland and not really having or being able to sit in on some of these conversations with Angela Davis and Cornel West, which I attended. Like, I was actually able to shake hands with Cornel West and talk about Howard and my experience and just how much he's meant to me growing up as a Black man within America. And so I think having those events, I think the school has done a good job when it comes to Henry Louis Gates being on campus, that being open to students, as well as the different departments here on campus that we have. But the actual curriculum itself, I don't feel that they've quite tackled the whole experience of the Black identity.
Nyla, can you lend any additional insight into how you feel celebrated on campus? How have your creative outlets given you an opportunity to express yourself?
Yeah, for sure, YouTube. I started my YouTube channel, I think, in 2018. So I talked a little bit about my experience at Cal State Long Beach, but mainly LMU. I talked about applying to grad school. I talked about getting waitlisted, which was crazy. I got waitlisted to LMU, and like I said, it was my dream school. That was very oh my gosh. I think I was talking to Dr. KJ Peters, and then he was like, okay, you'll get an update on Sunday. And I'm like, Sunday? I talked about the whole story on my YouTube channel, but basically being waitlisted, getting accepted, starting the program, leaving after 2 weeks, saying this is just not for me, coming back, sticking it out, graduating. I did a graduation vlog and kind of talked about that. I talked about my experience, being a creative writing major, giving advice and letting people decide whether it's the route that they want to take and what possible jobs come from that. I don't have all the answers, but I can definitely talk about my experience and where I'm at right now. But all of that content is on YouTube. I made sure to document it for anybody else that is probably wanting to apply to grad school and is not only Black students, but just anyone who's very curious about how the program went for certain people and whether they should pursue an MA in English, if that's their, route. But YouTube is definitely where I left all that stuff for people to go back and watch and learn from. And then even on Instagram, people reach out to me and ask questions about application process and stuff like that. So Instagram and YouTube, for sure.
Your studies allowed both of you to travel and speak with people outside of LMU. Let's start with you, Nyla. What were those experiences like?
So we were on a panel called Black Girls and White Women. And yes, it was for the 36th annual MELIS conference in New Orleans. It was titled Awakenings, Reckonings, and Multi-Ethnic Literature, Woke, What Now? So that's what we did. And it was a really fun experience just to travel and represent LMU and have that conversation with a lot of people about my experience as a Black woman in education at LMU. And it was just a really great experience.
And Brandon, where did your travels take you while you were studying here at LMU?
I spoke at the NASPA conference on racial equity and social change in Washington, D.C., so I went back home for it.
What could you impart to Black men or Black women that remind them that their futures matter? Because you talk about, connecting with the community, and I'm just kind of curious if that comes through, not necessarily at conferences, but what is something that you want them to know when they get to be your age and maybe be in this environment?
I think one thing I've learned in my life is that everything in life is a transitional period. Like life itself is a transitional period. There are people and things that are going to happen to you, whether you expect it to happen or not. And the one thing that you can always hold on to is who you are and your character. Because at the end of the day, those are the things that will always shine bright, no matter what type of situation you find yourself in, no matter how many people you think are lined up against you or are out to get you, whatever it may be. Holding on to my identity. And it really takes having strong people around you, strong mentors in your life, strong friends. So I think more than anything, prioritize having the right people who see the light within you and are fostering that and supporting that as you continue to grow. Because I think that's the one thing that will get you completely off track, is having the wrong people or not having a mentor, someone who has been through your experiences or who can relate to your experiences within your life. Because I think those are the people who you lean on when you don't know where to turn.
Are you ever discouraged that Black students make up the smallest portion of the student body? And if not, first, does that disappoint you to hear that? Or do you find that there might be some types of intersectional communities that allow diversity to make you feel enriched personally?
I think it does upset me because I've seen a lot of my friends who are Black leave the school for various reasons. A lot of that has to do with the rising tuition. Tuition's rising to a point where a lot of people can't go unless they're of upper middle, middle class maybe, but preferably upper middle class or the top echelon of society. So I think that's unfortunate because I think that's the trend that they have going on here when it comes to tuition. But just within those spaces, it's I've lost, I can say that I've lost a good amount of people who I knew freshman year who have left the school for various reasons. And so I think a lot of that, when I do talk to them, has to do with them feeling included, them feeling that they have a space on campus, them feeling, truly cherished by the university, by their professors. And that's not being communicated to some parts of, Black students here on campus. So I would say that to a degree, yes, we have different departments and other such things, but I think there's a lot of more work needs to be done to continue to retain Black students and to give them opportunity to become educated and go out into the world and go back into these communities. But I think it's hard to do that here with, the school not having such a hand in truly promoting that and wanting that to some degree. And so I just feel like a lot of us don't feel that truly, don't really truly feel accepted being on campus. We're not really seeing that response when it comes to the school taking the initiative to do so. But yeah, these are just some of the issues that I've encountered with people who I know who have left.
Nyla, are there spaces on campus that rectify the injustice Brandon has seen firsthand?
I don't want to say that there isn't anything LMU can do because it's just really based on what we feel inside and what we're probably going through. And it's just too much. So, I mean, I would say right when you start, maybe for like undergrads, academic advisors who, they can identify with, right, when they come here, someone to kind of be that mentor for them. I would say maybe like a mentorship program, like right when you walk in, or, something like that. Because like I said, there is the Black Student Union, but I don't know how often they probably do events here and how often, people kind of see that stuff happening. I would say diversifying faculty could probably help, you know what I mean? So that when students are in class, they know that their professors or someone that went through this can give them some advice, kind of be there for them. It is hard, especially if you're coming here from out of state. I can only imagine. That's why I stayed literally 10 minutes away from here. So, just people who are away from home, that is hard too. And maybe dorm life. It could be some, different events, or like kind of diversifying RAs, resident directors, just more involvement for everybody, I think would help. And yeah, I feel like that's probably what I would say. Professors, academic advisors, RAs, RDs, just trying to diversify that so people can see more of themselves. Because I remember when I was working at SFTV, the School of Film and Television, it was, I think, Admitted Lines Day. So a lot of the incoming freshmen were coming around SFTV just to kind of meet everyone, see like, what's to come and stuff. And there was this one young Black girl, she was with her mom, and she's like, I don't know, because like I don't see anyone that like looks like me. And I'm like, well, just kind of hold on, because like, they might be in your class. And then I had told her about the Black Student Union and just little different things that she could probably get into, just not to kind of give up already. School didn't even start yet. Just kind of give it a second, But immediately I feel like some students probably feel like left out, or just they don't feel welcomed here. But I mean, it is a private university. It is a great school. I feel like there are things to get into here, but you just have to kind of give it a second, and then also kind of do your research, see what you can get into, what's around the area, and just little things like that.
So, Brandon, are there any instances on campus that you find yourself that you are actively involved with people higher up that might impact students who get to take courses here?
I do have the honor of talking to higher educational professionals at LMU and, in different places across the country due to going to conferences. And within those spaces, I first of all learn a lot about the work they do, but also more importantly, I learn a lot about the work we can do here. And so creating a little bit more synergy between departments, having that and fostering that, I think is vital and important. Because I was talking to my boss today actually at work, and he was telling me that there's such a lack of communication between departments. And you would think on such a small campus that wouldn't be that way. And unfortunately it is. So I think a lot of the bridges and gaps we need to do is to foster these lines of communication between one another. And when it comes to me and my experience as a student, I thought there needed to be a little bit more connection between us as filmmakers and film production majors and the theater arts department. So a lot of the theater arts work within your film project. And so I think it would be interesting if there was a class that combined both theater majors as well as film production majors as well. And they could like somehow work on a project, or maybe just having one project added to the curriculum where there is a connection between those two departments. Because it would place filmmakers in an interesting position, because now we're working with actors, and that's something that we need to improve on. That's a skill we need to improve with, working with people. And then theater majors are also placed in a position where they may not be choosing a certain genre that they may want to play, but now they're being exposed to different genres, different characters that they have an opportunity to truly dive into and learn more about themselves and their craft. So I think in both ways, you get a little bit more connection between different majors and the departments. Same with recording arts. I think it'd be interesting to have a recording arts and having that connected to film in some type of way outside of just having a sole class for recording arts, as well as for music majors. Like I met a composer at my job but I work at the distribution center. Like that's that I think shouldn't. I'm glad it happened, but I think that should have happened much, much, much earlier in my time here at LMU. Like I think there should have been a little bit more collaboration between the music department, people who are there to become to do scores and compose for film or television, as well as for theater majors who want to act in television, who may want to just practice acting in general in different mediums. So I think it'd be amazing to have more of those connections made and put throughout the curriculum at LMU, because we have a lot of talented people who are from so many different places across the country. So I think we're missing out, or we're missing that opportunity to take that.
To facilitate this conversation further, we can now turn to a member of LMU's faculty. Through the highs and lows of educating students at LMU, maybe we can be hopeful for what lies ahead. And for that purpose, our next guest conveys a great deal of lived experience. For the purpose of this podcast, Lawrence, please state your name and describe what courses you teach here at LMU.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here, Alex. So I teach quite a bit. My name is Professor Lawrence Lacey. I originally came to the university teaching beginning acting 110, and then it transitioned into beginning acting 111. Then I've started to teach specific courses at LMU in the theater department.
What do you bring to the table to try to nurture students to stay in this university that wants the Black voice, the Black body, the Black performer to thrive?
I mean, just me showing up, I believe, is important. I mean, I'm grateful to the theater department for even having me. I mean, every semester, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have an opportunity to walk into a classroom with students to see me. And I think that in and of itself is impactful.
What wisdom do you hope to impart to all your students beginning or completing their studies here at LMU?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, get to know each other, become as informed with everyone's differences as possible. I mean, one of the things that I do in my classes, I do this thing called origin stories. And what I do is I have the students speak about their grandparents, speak about their parents, where they came from before they actually came into the world, what that origin was. And sometimes, believe it or not, I get a few students that say that they're white. And then, of course, I say, that's just a construct. Let's talk about where you come from. So then they say, okay, well, I'm Greek, or I'm Swedish, or I have a background in being English, or anything like that. So there are specifics that have to be, at least that I pull out, so that the students can really talk about themselves more specifically, and then also that the other students can hear other backgrounds and other origins different from themselves, but very specific. So I don't like the general white thing, because it doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing.
How do you respond to the reluctant person, or to the reluctant student, or someone who says, I don't identify as X or Y or whatever you want to call it?
Generally speaking, people in general fundamentally good, right? They're very intelligent, can see through a bunch of BS, right? So when I speak, or whenever the topic comes up, which is very rare, but when it does come up, when the topic of Black and white does come up, I mean, the conversations are pretty rich, and very rich, in fact. And the overall feeling that there's something deeper is always there, because there is. I mean, it's very rarely that we ever talk about it, especially as a larger community. Now, I might go into a smaller subsection of the university, and we might have, let's say in particular, if it's a Black student in a group of Black students, that we might speak about that particular topic. But then if I'm around a group of white students, or the construct of white, then it becomes, we have a different kind of conversation. But very rarely are we all coming together having a very similar conversation. It's just the opportunities for that, even in America, are very rare. And that's unfortunate. But when it does happen, it's incredibly insightful. But most importantly, we all grow from it.
I'm curious about, if you have any anecdotes of how you've seen someone very reluctant to discuss race transform through your give your practice and your process, and come out the other side, maybe not the next great actor, but the next great person?
It's a good question, Alex. And sadly, I have not had that experience. You know, again, opportunities for the student body, the opportunities for us as a faculty, those opportunities to have those discussions are just far few and in between, if at all, unfortunately. So let's say if I do have a student in class and we're working on a particular project, race never, ever comes up. We rarely have those conversations. It's just an unfortunate thing. I mean, the American society in general just doesn't talk about it. And it's too bad. I mean, it reminds me of quite a bit of the origin of theater and the origin of racism in and of itself with minstrel, right? This was a fabricated idea of Black people. I mean, it came out of a person's idea. It just came out of their own imagination. And they exaggerated this kind of imagination, and it became entertainment. So the idea that we are having a real conversation about race, even here in LMU, I mean, obviously we're not even having it in the country, but in LMU in particular, it's not even something that we're having, because the idea of racism being a imaginary construct is difficult for people to have a conversation about. I mean, for both Black and white, because even being Black, trying to meet a particular standard, try to, if you will, to prove a negative, to try to fight these kinds of ideas that are being held about Black people, even on campus. I mean, to try to prove that to be wrong is futile, because what you're doing is you're trying to prove a imaginary construct to be imaginary. And that's a very difficult thing when people believe it to be real. It's like narcissism. It's very difficult to prove to a narcissist that they are somehow underscoring or deflecting reality. The reality of race in America is that it's all imaginary. And to speak about it in a real term is difficult, because the origin of it is imagination.
You're a working actor. You know, what films, plays, mediums are at the forefront of what you would want to give to a Black or a white student who's in your class? You know, what performance transformed your life as a person and an actor, or oriented your future to be an artist who performs and nurtures other artists?
The origins of me getting into the business obviously is very similar to a majority of Black actors in the business, and that is we didn't see ourselves reflected, represented in the mainstream media. We didn't see ourselves represented in positive ways in film, television, theater. So I came into the business wanting to be a voice and be a face that had a positive reflection to being Black in America. It has been a challenge from the very moment I started this journey, and it continues to this day. The other reason why I got into the world of teaching is because of the business of acting. And once I got into the business of acting, I learned that my education did not teach me anything to prepare me for the actual business of acting. So I speak to my students, both Black and white, or the variations of Black, variations of white, and speak to them about the very nature of this business, and to give them a kind of, maybe a head start as to what it is that they're going to be faced once they leave the training institution, and to have to deal with that reality. So that was my real reason for being motivated to continue as an instructor, is to really just get all people from all backgrounds to really just be aware of what's out there. Now, have I had an opportunity to sit down with Black students themselves and just say, hey, this is what you should look for? I've never had that opportunity on this campus.
The school has been proactive in bringing Skip, Angela Davis, Wally Soyinka, Cornell West. So on the surface, it seems like, we're trying to say these voices matter. They matter here because we're having these large events here on campus. But I don't think that solves any of the issues that you just laid out. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts about what the next steps are, because there's awareness and then there's action. And I'm wondering what action looks like.
Well, I mean, honestly, I'm incredibly encouraged, right? I'm always encouraged when I come to campus because I'm dealing with students. I'm dealing with some of the younger minds of our generation, right? Of the future. These are the future of the future leaders, right? So I'm always encouraged to look in the faces of our future leaders. However, I am going to continue to say this, that the fantasy, the storytelling, the made up perspectives of the construct of black and white, these things, they're very pervasive and they continue to this day. It breaks my heart. My daughter was born in 2002 and I am still amazed that she's dealing with racism, right? And it baffles me, right, that this kind of thing continues. It used to be a time where I was like, well, okay, this will pass, obviously, because it doesn't, it's so hateful, it's so disgusting, it's so demeaning. There's no way in the world that racism can continue. You have, young children from all backgrounds are being born every day. There's no way that the racism is going to continue. But then when I walk around campus and I see all these young future leaders, I'm saddened by the fact that there's still this pervasive kind of toxic, horrible stink of racism that just continues to just move on. It continues to live. But I also recognize that the students are here to learn. There are also students here that are definitely trying to do something about it, to change, to go in a different direction. But, the only way to really go into a different direction, a really active way to go into a different direction, is to break down the construct, to really eliminate the benefits of this construct. Once you eliminate the benefits, once you eliminate the code, then, success will start to become what it ultimately should be, which is everybody can benefit. And in fact, history had shown that when you have a diverse population and a diverse contribution from that diverse population, that the population itself benefits greatly. The school itself will benefit greatly by having a large, diverse population and an honest one, right? To really discuss these topics to get us to a point where we can actually do something about it, or at least to listen to the topics as they come up and say, wow, this person is not losing their mind. They're not crazy. We should really listen to what they're saying. But with all magical thinking, right, concepts of narcissism, when a person expresses to you their reality, like this is a real thing that I'm going through, the interpretation through a narcissist perspective, which I believe is the construct. I think that the white construct is a narcissistic construct. I think it's a personality disorder construct, where the belief is that, hey, I'm giving you my reality, but then you can twist that around and turn that into me having some kind of problem. Because the white construct, as with narcissism, that the narcissist is a constant victim, and they believe that they are a victim, even if they're the ones creating these problems. They believe that they are the victim, and they have to create these problems because they're a victim. And the white construct is the same way. The construct of white believes that they're a victim, that they are, the ones that are being attacked for this particular, let's say, reality or a complaint that might come from the black construct. But the white construct is the one that created this reality. This is the thing that has to be addressed. And if that is not addressed, then it will, like I said, my daughter's born in 2002. It perpetuates. It can go on for eternity.
My curiosity is, how does the university experience? I don't know if we can legislate away narcissism. It has to be something about art, something about the way we socialize, something about the way we choose to love or understand each other. But do you think the university experience here at LMU can disentangle young minds from the divisive present in the U.S. and the repressive past that we shouldn't forget?
Right. Entanglement is an incredible thing. It is it's a horror that you can normalize. And that is what has happened. And it's, again, we come to school every day, and it's a beautiful campus. I love this place. curriculum that can be addressed, particularly if you know that it's a problem, right? If there is a known issue, a known problem, there has to be some resources put into that in that direction to really address that issue. And if one does not consider that issue to be real, if the powers that be do not consider those issues to be valid, then no, the resources won't be put into that place. But again, that's an American problem. And I don't know how, again, outside of just dealing with the reality of the construct and dealing with the reality of the fantasy, again, how do you get to deal with that? I mean, I'm in an art, right? I'm an artist. I teach theater. You know, I'm very much aware of what it looks like to make something up. I'm very much aware of what it looks like to have characters play a role, and then to have those characters play that role so realistically that you believe it to be true. You know, that's what I see every day. And I see it through the lens of me being a creator, a performer. And I know that that's where racism came from, because racism was, again, initially created through this minstrel. And that was all created through theater. Those were actors who came up with those concepts. And now we live under those images that have been presented in film and television and theater, and they still are being presented to this very day. And all of it was created by performers. So until we're able to really look at the reality versus the storytelling, then the entanglement, if you will, is going to continue. And we all lose. No one benefits from this. Even if you benefit from it, as say at a particular level, financially, let's say, you still suffer. I mean, because you live in fear. You're constantly afraid of some notion of some boogeyman coming to attack you. And then you make that your reality. And so you then continue to spread fear throughout your entire community. It's just war. And war is terrible, no matter what. And we're having just what I call it a silent war. Racism is a silent war. It's a sad war. And they're constant casualties. But again, when can it be, or how can it be changed? It depends mainly on the power structure that continues to benefit from it.
I think there's this acceptance that time heals everything, and it doesn't seem to do that for a lot of people who are trying to learn, who are trying to work, who are trying to make ends meet. And I think if there's anything LMU the LMU audience can learn from this, is that, you know, it's up to us. It's up to the people who are on this campus to say, this is what I want to see. This is what I want to learn. These are the people I want to interact with, and have that not be a racial silo. And I think we can get there. I think, do you think that, like, when people begin their studies here, they have that option?
The LMU students, just like students all over the country, but particularly those who follow the mission here at LMU, the idea that those students can change the world is very real. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of people to change the world. It just takes people with a conviction and a vision and an honest kind of foundation and support to really change the world. It can be done. Students again, all over the country, probably all over the world, have a sense that something's not right. You know, they believe that there can be something that can be adjusted. But again, we're looking at an idea of a person who really has to want to make that happen. And we have to also be in a community that really wants to make that happen. And I think LMU has the potential to really change the world, right? To do some wonderful things, but it takes risks, and it takes a lot of courage to really do that, which is what we do here at LMU, which is why I love LMU and LMU's mission. The possibility of what it is that LMU can do, the possibility of what LMU's student body can do, and the possibility is there, and it can be done. It's just a matter of getting it done.
Does it surprise you that in a university in Los Angeles, students who identify as being Black make up 10% of the campus population? Is that surprising to you? Do you think that's something that the university should actively improve on?
Even as a person of color, I can cry day and night for the abuse that can be receiving, right? And this is what's been happening throughout the country, and obviously also here on campus. You have the Black population that cry every day. We voice our frustrations and voice our dismay. I mean, we also do it as individuals. We do it as a group. I mean, we express ourselves to our faculty, our administration. I mean, that's just part of the narrative of being Black in predominantly white institutions, is to express your frustration and dismay and underrepresentation and treatment, et cetera. But because the construct is so solid, right, and those benefited from it greatly, there's no motivation to change. There's no motivation whatsoever. If I cry, that's just me crying. Oh, well, deal with it. And until the construct is really evaluated for what it is, which is very abusive. It's very abusive. It's very cruel. It's also incredibly insensitive. And in some ways, it has no empathy. And so because of that, people are going to be viewed a particular way, which is unfortunate.
Thank you for listening. And please visit us again to listen to our next installment of Advocate. We hope listening to these creative guests creates unspoken bonds and fragments entrenched biases. The Academy of Catholic Thought and Imagination believes art transforms everything. Please join us again next time for another installment of Advocate.